holidaymakers, not much has changed in Fiji. After initially being scared away by last December's military takeover, tourists are returning to discover Fiji's as relaxing and safe as ever. But outside these little patches of paradise and in the lives of ordinary Fijians, dramatic change has occurred. One night in February, only kilometres from the international airport and glossy tourist resorts, the military picked up a 19-year-old boy.
They come up this way into the back tracks were up there.
It was Alanieta Rabaka's youngest son, Sakiusa, who was accused of smoking marijuana. Alanieta was frantic. Earlier in the day, her other son had been taken by the military and returned home badly beaten. She called the police.
I said, can you please look for my son, because he's a big boy. He's about 6 feet 7 inches tall. And I know taking him in the night, they think that he's a grown-up man. He's that old, but he's still a very young boy.
Special emergency regulations in place at the time had the military on the streets, enforcing law and order.
Any kind of allegation, if you don't like your neighbour, and this was a chance, and people would just run up to the barracks and say, so-and-so did this to me, so-and-so took away my land, so-and-so punched me, and then the people would go and get these people, and they were subjected to, I think, torture. I would call it torture.
Sakiusa Rabaka disappeared into the military barracks at 11 p.m.
About 5 in the morning, my youngest son was brought in. He could barely walk. He was just crawling.
And how did he look to you?
Oh, he was in real pain. He was in real pain. And he just said, Mom, can I have 2 Panadol, please? I got 2 Panadol, I gave it to him. He went upstairs. He slept. I didn't sleep.
The next morning, she saw how badly he'd been beaten in the military camp.
And the other 2 boys that were taken in with him said that when he was unconscious, they started kicking his head. They said, oh, he's just lying to us. He is conscious, he knows. He just doesn't want to do the whatever punishment that was given to him. Actually, he was unconscious and started kicking. There, he said that's when how he received the head injuries.
Sakiusa's brain was hemorrhaging.
I was helpless because he was in pain most of the time, and there was nothing I could do.
After 1 month of almost constant pain, Sakiusa Rabaka died. The post-mortem cited the cause of death as hemorrhage as the result of blunt trauma. So you don't think there's any doubt that he died because of the beating he received?
He died. He definitely died because of the beating.
In Fiji, I get on the internet to contact those who first reported Sakiusa Rabaka's beating, bloggers. Since the coup, a network of these internet sites called blogs has sprung up. The writers are opposed to the coup and anonymous. I arranged to meet some so-called freedom bloggers, but they'll only talk at a secret location with their identities disguised.
The death of Sakiusa Rabaka touched the hearts more than anything because he was quite a young person. He was just 19. That was when people realized that anybody could be taken in for any, on any basis whatsoever, and not, come out in one piece.
Writing under pseudonyms, Intelligentsia and Keep the Faith have shared a blog site for 6 months, but only met in person tonight. The military has been actively hunting them down.
Well, if one of us gets taken up, there is a likelihood that they would have to tell on the others. And that was just a conscious decision that we took early on, that we'd try not to know each other on a personal level.
The bloggers have written not just about Sakiusa Rabaka, but also 2 other men killed in custody this year.
I think if we achieved nothing else, at least we could have said that we followed our conscience and opposed such violent tactics and such barbaric way of ruling.
Bainimarama says he started writing after feeling frustrated at not being able to express his views.
It got to a stage where the first 2 months after the coup, people were so intimidated that I'd go to a family function and people would be reserved about their opinions. They wouldn't express exactly what they're thinking.
Even at a family function?
Even at a family function.
I look forward to working together with all our citizens for the benefit of all, to mark a new beginning in the history of our beloved country. God bless Fiji. Thank you very much.
Coup leader Commodore Frank Bainimarama justified removing the elected government on the grounds of necessity, saying the military needed to rid the country of corruption and racism.
If I believe the current regime had stuck to what they said, clean-up campaign, and we're going to get rid of racism, we're going to get all these corrupt practices and so on, people would have given them their blessings if they would have just stuck to that. But because of a lot of things that have happened, a lot of resentment and hostility has crept into the population, and the fear.
Shamima Ali is one of few prepared to speak publicly. She's helped document hundreds of human rights abuses, including people being arbitrarily sacked, intimidated, and the beatings of both civilians and political opponents.
In the first few months, people are regularly being taken in, particularly in the middle of the night, pro-democracy activists, trade unionists, lawyers who were speaking out too much.
She's right in the beginning.
Human rights worker Virasila Budromo knew she was in trouble when she heard herself named on radio by Commodore Bainimarama.
He specifically named myself, as well as one of my board members, as people who were not helping Fiji get back on the straight and narrow.
Just before midnight last Christmas Eve, Virasila was taken from her home by the military. She'd run an advertisement giving out Bainimarama's mobile phone number, urging opponents of the coup to text him. She was taken into the barracks.
They kept on, asking me in Fijian, who did I think I was, putting out the commander's mobile number, publicizing his mobile number. Do you realize what you have done? While questioning me, they had a gun, which they, uncocked and cocked, and then they sort of put it up to my head, and then just saying, you know what we could do with this, and,
Virasila was then made to lie face down in the rain, along with 6 other pro-democracy activists.
And then that's when they started to physically abuse us. One of the things which I thought was quite strange at the time, they asked me, asked all the females, are you pregnant? And I was like, no, and I was wondering what that was about. And I remember saying yes, and then immediately they just, with their boots, stamped on your back, on your lower back. So they did it to all 3 females. And
did they do it to the woman who said she was pregnant?
They did, yeah, they did it to all of us. I thought they said no. She said yes, that they wouldn't, but they did it. They still did it. And that's when they started, really physically assaulting us, smacking, boxing your ears, so to speak, smacking up your ears, hitting your face with their boots, kicking you in the ribs. Then they made us lick their boots, do really degrading things like that. And then they started to threaten our families, what we could do to your families. They knew all these details about our families. And then they basically said things like, we could kill you now, put a bullet through all your heads, put you in a drum, and throw you out at the wharf or down at Suva Harbour, and no one would ever know and no one would miss you.
Vera Silas says she's now a lot more careful with her criticism.
Before, I would never have thought twice about putting out a statement. I never would have thought about it. Like, for me, just put out a statement. We got to say something. Whereas now, following what happened to me, I'm very aware of just not the repercussions just on me, but on my staff. I mean, we've been threatened, and another of my colleagues has been threatened recently. So we have to be very careful about these things because we're operating in an environment of fear. You never know.
Today, the streets of Suva look remarkably normal. The special emergency regulations have been lifted and the military is back in the barracks. Up at Parliament House, though, nothing is happening except a little gardening. Parliamentary democracy is on hold here until at least 2009. Till then, an interim government headed by Commodore Bainimarama is in charge.
Thank you.
Downtown, I meet the interim government's Attorney General, a civilian lawyer. Do you accept that the military did wage a campaign of fear upon people?
I don't believe so.
I've spoken to lots of Fijians who say they're fearful, though. They're fearful of the military. They're fearful of being picked up in the middle of the night.
Well, it depends who you talk to also. There are numerous people, a number of people, dozens if not hundreds of people, who are actually quite aghast by the fact that the public emergency regulations were lifted. People are saying, no, keep it in place because now I can sleep with my windows open. I actually don't have a problem walking down the street. I can go and play with my kids in the park because I know I'm not going to get, mugged.
From these offices in downtown Suva, the interim government is undertaking a radical remaking of Fiji. A clean-up campaign, they say, for the benefit of all.
Yeah, I'm also helping the country move forward. The house is on fire. My house is on fire. I need to come and help extinguish it.
As Permanent Secretary to Prime Minister Bainimarama, PARMESH Chand, an Indo-Fijian, is now one of the country's most senior public servants. He tells me endemic racism would have stopped him in the past, and he's an example of the new policies of racial equality. In the name of ending discrimination against Indo-Fijians, the interim government is unravelling policies that exclusively benefited Indigenous Fijians.
Discriminatory policies are being removed to ensure that the disadvantaged and the poor get help rather than any particular race or any particular category of people.
So do you think that this will provide better opportunities for Indo-Fijians?
Not only Indo-Fijians, it will provide better opportunities for everybody. If you aspire, if you contribute, if you are able to excel, you get rewarded.
The so-called clean-up campaign has also seen many sacked from government departments and statutory authorities. Even the Chief Justice has lost his job.
So it's all based on good governance, the need for transparency and ethical practices.
But critics are concerned that many new jobs are going to military officers.
Whether you're talking about the Commissioner of Police, the Commissioner of Prisons, the Director of Immigration, the Acting Secretary for Justice, diplomats that are nominated for the United Nations and Malaysia, these are all senior military officers. I have a concern because we're now fusing the boundaries between the military and civilian government. So, in many respects, what we're seeing emerging is the militarization of Fiji.
And why does that concern you?
It concerns me because the evidence that we have seen so far has been one of arbitrariness, spite, capriciousness, and just a complete lack of understanding of how a society that's governed and based on the rule of law should function.
This is the reception area. where a lot of the complaints that comes in and they're being received here, then they're usually directed to the investigators.
This is Fiji's new Independent Commission Against Corruption, headed by Lieutenant Colonel George Langman.
This is some of the remaining documents that you can find. This is all from the Public Works Department. Yeah.
Of all the so-called clean-up measures underway, this is the most important. Alleged corruption was a key justification for overthrowing the elected government.
Because we've been raising these issues with the last government for the last many years. There have been several complaints coming to the army about these issues, but the previous government seems to turn a blind eye on it. These payments done to private vehicles being hired by certain government departments.
For what?
For water supply. Mm-hmm. For contracts, yeah.
And is there anything that concerns you in those papers we're looking at now?
Some of the payments and mileage and time reviews are inconsistent.
Hundreds of thousands of documents have already been seized, but so far no evidence of wide-scale corruption has emerged. Lieutenant Colonel Langman says it's early days and is confident of his mission.
Well, the military has been the backbone of ensuring that we have a Fiji that's clean of corruption.
You must use democratic legal processes to deal with corruption. And paradoxically, the very act of ousting a democratically elected government is in itself a form of corruption.
Outspoken Suva lawyer Graham Leung says the very actions of the military and the interim government make a mockery of their claim to be pursuing a transparent society.
Freedom of expression has been interfered with almost on a daily basis, and people like myself who have strong opinions on the events that are unfolding in Fiji have been singled out for special treatment, if I can put it that way.
Have you heard about from the Prime Minister's office about my visa? Have they said anything about letting me go yet?
No.
Okay.
In an extraordinary move, the Prime Minister, Commodore Bainimarama, has personally banned Graham Leung from leaving the country. Leung is desperate to fly out in a few days' time to attend a conference and tries to call Bainimarama.
Morning, how are you?
Morning, good, thank you.
Is the Prime Minister in this morning, Kini?
Yeah.
Has he seen my letter asking for, the ban to be lifted?
Yeah, it's on his paper.
Because today is Thursday and I'm supposed to be leaving on Monday, and I really would appreciate his intervention. Do you suggest maybe I make an appointment to see him?
When?
Today, because I want to go on Monday and I have to firm up my travel plans and accommodation. I don't really want to go to the court, I don't want to go to the media because this is embarrassing. I hate attracting attention to myself.
I think you should talk with the PSA.
Is the PSA?
He was going to come and talk to him about it.
Right. I just called PARMESH, but he's not answering his mobile.
So he must be in a meeting as well. Okay.
Leung believes this is his punishment for publicly criticising the regime.
Thank you very much, Kini.
Bye.
No luck.
No luck. They've done this all week. So you call people and they tell you to call someone else, and then someone else tells you to call someone else, and it just goes on. So it's become somewhat ridiculous, really. But that's where the sense of helplessness comes in.
On Monday morning, Leung has still not managed to speak to the Prime Minister, but decides to try and get on the flight anyway. Minutes later, he's on his way out again, knocked back at immigration and simply told he's on a blacklist. And what's your opinion of what's happened?
Well, I think it's shocking. It demonstrates that if you speak up for justice, you will get penalized.
I refuse to submit to the idea that my silence can be purchased if I behave myself. For me, the idea of democracy, the idea of supporting the rule of law and the idea of human rights is very important. I'm not speaking for myself. I'm speaking for the many hundreds of Fiji citizens who feel unable to speak and who do not have a voice because of fear, retribution, reprisals.
Alanieta Rabaka feels like she has no voice. 5 months since her son Sakiusa died after a beating in military custody, no one has been charged. And did the police tell you they knew who did this?
Yes, they knew who did that, and even the family knows.
You know?
Yeah.
How do you know that?
The other 2 boys knows they know the soldiers well.
What kind of justice would you like to see for the men who did this to your son?
He's brought to court and charged with murder.
Commodore Bainimarama has had a very distinguished career. In terms of virtues, he strongly believes and practices the principle of discipline, honesty, good governance in government, and accountability.
It's my last night in Fiji, and so far an interview with Commodore Bainimarama has proved elusive. There are many questions to ask him. Hi, Prime Minister. Can I grab you for 5 minutes?
Yes.
Since the events of December, there have been some accounts given of the military abusing their power, people up the barracks being beaten up and humiliated. Isn't this kind of behaviour at odds with your mission of cleaning up Fiji?
I have told my people the truth that we will not condone that. Anyone seen doing that will be taken to task. And I've also reported that in the press. Abuse of authority will not be condoned by the military.
Are you unhappy about some of the behaviour?
Some people may have, some actions may have gotten out of hand. People may have good intentions, but the action will not.
Earlier that day, Bainimarama announced that Graham Leung was now free to travel again. But the Commodore is still clearly annoyed at Leung for damaging Fiji's already tarnished international reputation.
People like Graham Leung go across to Hong Kong and Canberra and New Zealand and run the nation down and give all sorts of lies which people believe. And they're not helping our cause.
But isn't it just free speech? Doesn't that happen in any healthy democracy?
Free speech? What democracy? Your democracy or my democracy?
What's your version of free speech in Fiji? Do they have the right to say those things?
They have a right to say anything they want, but as long as they're not bringing in issues that will stop us moving forward. That's what we've been saying all along, and they're not helping us.
The final question I have for the Commodore is about Sakiusa Rabaka. As Prime Minister of the country, when do you think his family will see justice?
Well, justice will come around when people will find out, when there's proof that there was somebody had killed, and obviously.
So you don't think you don't think it happened in military custody?
No, I haven't received any reports on that. Our legal people are handling that, so I really don't know.
No one in the new regime can explain why there's been no justice for the family of Sakiusa Rabaka. Police finished their investigations back in May, giving the results to the Director of Public Prosecutions. Since then, it's gone nowhere. Do you feel afraid of the military now?
Well, the thing is, I'm not afraid of them, but we are helpless. I think that's a better word to use. We are helpless. Because no matter what we bring forth,